Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session. We're so glad to see all of your faces today. We have a super interesting conversation to you about the game industry and responsibility in the game industry. But let me start with introductions. My name is Libe Ackerman, and I am VP of Creative Strategy for Greenlit Content. And I am also the founder and editor of a site called Super Parent, and it is a resource for parents who are raising the next generation of game and tech fans. Now, with me today, my two honorable guests are Mike Gallagher. I know your name, I promise. Mike Gallagher, President and CEO of the ESA, and I have Anastasia Staten. She says, people just call me Anastasia. I said, okay, great. So Anastasia Staten from the ESA Foundation. So the topic today is a fireside chat about the state of the industry. But what I really think the topic of this conversation is today should be, with great power comes great responsibility. And I'll explain more, but there are 2.6 billion gamers worldwide that are really driving the growth and innovation that's defining the entertainment experience for people all over the world. And this is kind of where that quote comes in, with great power comes great responsibility. We, as an industry, have a responsibility to ensure to continue to drive inclusion and represent diversity of all the people and all the cultures that make up the global gaming community. So, in doing so, we know that game creators and publishers are social innovators, and giving back is really a part of their DNA. And we know that giving back to the communities that we live and play in is a formula for continued growth. So during this chat today, we really want to talk about this theme and really celebrate all the individuals and programs and the investments and communities that are driving impact and really shaping the next chapter of the video game industry. And so some of the topics that we're going to cover, we'll talk about the cultural relevance of video games. We'll talk about the ESA Foundation, their commitments and leadership, and also talked about profiles in diversity, the impact, and the evolution of that. So, Mike, 60% of Americans, 2.6 billion people around the world play video games. So really, we can't understate the value. I mean, entertainment of video games, it's huge, obviously. But what's your assessment of the social value of games?
So first of all, Libby, it's a delight to be here with you. It's always a pleasure to be with Anastasia as well. It's great to see everyone here again. This is my 10th Games for Change Festival that I've had the privilege of attending. And it's an infusion of creativity and thought that we carry throughout the year when we leave. But in answer to your question about the social impact, the social weight of games, I would say it's never been higher, and it's growing at an incredible rate. When you look at the impact and the engagement level, it's massive engagement, creating massive conversations, which then go from the virtual world to the physical world. And a few examples. When you have 2.6 billion gamers, that's a lot of people, and that's everybody. They don't all look the same, talk the same, they don't live in the same place. It's a huge global community. When you have in the United States, 60% of American parents play games with their kids. And the number one reason they do that is because it's fun. When you look at that type of connection that's happening on a mass scale, then you really do have cultural relevance. Look at the example that Eric showed earlier. Grand Theft Auto V has sold 90 million units, grossed $6 billion, and that's more than the entire trilogy or the 5 films for Lord of the Rings. So when you get to things like Fortnite, which is truly a phenomenon, look at the impact in sports, you look at how exciting that really is, and it's on the tip of everyone's tongue, it's social, it's 100 people playing at one time, it's incredibly powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think when you look at Fortnite, I mean, you can't stumble across someone who hasn't played it or who doesn't at least clearly understand some element or some reference in the game. I mean, it's becoming pretty much a cultural phenomenon and part of the conversation. And I think it's also a good example of the community that can be built around a game, and from my lens, being more philanthropic, the ability to look at that, the opportunity of looking at that audience and how to be able to harness them to do amazing things like Extra Life. You know, I think that it's amazing what they've been able to do and grow around a community of donors. I mean, around a community of gamers.
You know, from my perspective, Extra Life is probably the single greatest achievement philanthropically that ESA has achieved to date. I'm sure Anastasia will take us to new heights, but how many are familiar with Extra Life? Raise your hand. Okay, so just about a third. So it's basically a game-a-thon in November, and your friends sponsor you, and all of the contributions go to, or 98%, go to the Children's Miracle Hospital, Children's Hospital in your area, the closest one to you. When we first met with the Children's Miracle Network, who puts on the event, they were raising about $400,000 a year in this kind of game-a-thon, and they asked, would the industry support it? Would the industry engage? We did, and $40 million later, we sit here. Last year, in one weekend alone, the industry, gamers, with the excitement of game companies promoting it, with Children's Miracle Network being the absolute focal point, those hospitals and helping kids who have such serious needs, raised $10 million in one weekend alone. So this is the power philanthropically of our industry when we harness gamers and game makers.
I mean, those are some big numbers that you're throwing out, 10 million, 40 million. I mean, Extra Life really is a fantastic cause, and I love, you know, driven by a love for video games and that community engagement, which is so amazing. Can you guys talk about some other partnerships that kind of tap into games' cultural prominence and power to engage?
Sure. I mean, I think, do you mind if I take this one?
Absolutely.
I think if you, particularly like focusing on, oh wow. So if you focus on, you know, just the whole concept of engaging, you know, the cultural relevance and the access to games has grown to the point that it's also a tool for being able to do other things, not just, you know, kind of beyond entertainment. And I think anyone in this room, and many of you are here because you're looking to ways or are already creating ways to leverage games to engage an audience. And I think when you look at some of the things that we've funded, such as Bootstrap, or iCivics. I think those are two really great examples. I love Bootstrap. I mean, they're taking the whole concept of engaging. Thank you.
How come she gets two?
Engagement.
Jealous.
Double the awesomeness. Engagement and taking gamification, creating a game where you are teaching algebraic principles and helping kids get over the hurdle of the #1 most failed class in high school. And that's also a barrier to graduation. You must pass that to graduate. And if you fail that class, you're 400 times more likely to actually drop out of high school. So the fact that Bootstrap has been able to deliver this to 25,000 kids and help them get over that hump is amazing. And the feedback that they get from the teachers that is creating success in driving metrics and not only graduation rates, but also then the pass rates in algebra are astronomical. So I think that that's really recognizing the relevance, the medium, and what you can do beyond entertainment with video games.
That's so amazing. Just Extra Life, Bootstrap, so awesome. I mean, Mike, you know, there's an enormous $116 billion industry out there that's really dedicated to entertaining people, but do they also care about helping young people and using its platform for social good? What do you think?
I would say they absolutely do, and there are several reasons for that. Today, companies are mature. When you get to the range where you're at $116 billion worldwide, you are looking to attract and build the game makers of tomorrow to make the great games of tomorrow, and you're going to do it for $2.6 billion and growing numbers. They need to represent everyone. And the companies, absolutely, the ESA board members certainly do. This is a worldwide, diverse population we're seeking to entertain, And we have to embrace that in how we run our businesses and who we hire and how we treat them, and also in the gamers themselves, making sure that we're being respectful of everyone and welcoming everyone into the experiences of interactive entertainment. So there's very much a strong business interest in getting that right.
I mean, can you tell us a little bit about what individual companies are doing along those lines?
So there are several examples, but when you look at what Microsoft has done with accessibility, very, very timely, given some comments from the FCC chairman a couple of days ago, when they develop a controller that's specifically designed to be accessible by those who are less abled, that's a powerful statement from Microsoft saying that they're about the whole community. And the FCC chairman at a gathering of the disabled community a couple of nights ago specifically pointed that and said the video game industry, their self-regulatory approach to innovation in this space is a credit to us and to the right model that should be deployed in other industries. The Call of Duty Endowment is another one. Call of Duty Endowment has received $25 million in funding from Activision. And what they've done with that is placed over 50,000 vets in jobs. That's the second highest total to the Veterans Administration in Washington, D.C. And they're doing it at a fraction of the cost, and the average wage is $57,000 a year, and they stay in those jobs for at least a year before they're counted as being successfully placed. So what Activision has done there is extraordinarily generous and of high impact to a constituency that we all value here, and that's those who defend our freedom.
I mean, Anastasia, you and Mike have really already talked about just a number of ESA Foundation commitments and partnerships, which are amazing. But you've also mentioned that the foundation has supported about 70 nonprofits. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, love to. So over the years, yes, we've supported about 70 nonprofits in schools and provided about 150 grants. And that's actually exclusive of our partnerships that we have. And to partner, right now we're working with about 10 grantees pretty regularly. I think I saw a few of them floating out and about in the hallways, one of them being Global Game Jam. We're really proud of that partnership. Many of you probably are familiar with their game jams all over the world, but they're also getting ready to launch their first program for kids. In 50 sites across the United States this summer. They'll be hosting week-long programming for kids and then culminating in a big game jam where they can show off their creations and innovations. And I think things like that are really important for us to support and engage in, not only supporting philanthropically, but as Mike said a minute ago, in terms of how can we nurture, not only for business side, there's a lot of growth in the industry, there's going to be a lot of jobs, there's a lot of jobs open now, but how do we help create that next generation of innovator and game maker? And that's one of the roles that we see, and we hope these kids will go into the industry, but if they don't, we at least know that we have helped do our part to create kind of a global workforce that has the skill sets to meet the challenge of the new workforce.
And before you go to the next question, I'd love to underscore a boost that Anastasia has provided to us over the last 2 years as her leadership at the foundation is scale. If you look at all of the grantees that have come through the system in the last 2 cycles, they reach tens of thousands, they reach much larger audiences, they have huge impact. And that's thanks to Anastasia's terrific work in being able to attract those groups to partner with us and then being able to find the right place for us to participate.
That's awesome. Okay, we're starting to run short on time, so I definitely want to make sure we get next to this topic, which I think is super fascinating. But can you tell us more about your scholarship program?
Oh, I'd love to. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. So we have a scholarship fund for women and minorities, and over the last 10 years, we've helped support almost, I think we actually might be tipping now over 300 scholars, and it is one of the absolute highlights of my job. You go through the rigorous process of applying for the application, and we go through the process of reading them all and being very diligent about that. But then when you get to meet them, we met this year's class for the first time at E3 a couple of weeks ago. And it was amazing, and providing them that opportunity to meet with people in the industry, to learn more about the jobs that they want, really helps you connect and understand that you're really making a difference in someone's life. It's not just the financial commitment that we're giving them, but it's also the access and the encouragement that we're providing them. And I think that, there's a lot of cultural conversations going on in our society right now about diversity, inclusion, equity pay, and all of these things. And, the foundation has been had this scholarship program for 10 years. So I feel very proud that we were sort of looking and identifying this a while ago. But I'm very much glad now that the conversation is elevated, and it's also allowed a whole nother platform for our scholarship recipients to hopefully be welcomed into the industry.
I mean, that's great. And I know you have lots of great stories about recipients and what kind of amazing things they've done in their career. Is there anyone you can name check really quickly?
Liz Fiacco, only because I saw her last week at E3. She was on one of our panels. She is a wonderful woman who was a scholarship recipient. And she went off after school and created her own game studio, created her own IP. And then after doing that for about 5 years, I think, she went to Naughty Dog, where she has found a wonderful home there and just worked on The Last of Us Part 2. And she is not only proud of being a part of that team, she's also proud, speaking of diversity inclusion, about some of the themes and topics that are explored in that game as a way to further drive conversation. And I think it's not only a testament to her and that team and the industry, but also having her be a scholarship recipient and why she got that scholarship and now being a part of it. It kind of feels like a really awesome circle, closed circle.
That's so great. Can you talk a little bit about your We Are Foundation? That's something that, speaking of diversity and inclusion in E3, it really all ties in together.
On the topic of all those
I know,
things.
while we're talking about those many things, you guys have this We Are initiative. And can you tell us a little more about that, what it is?
Yeah. So Mike paid me a compliment, so I'll pay him one back. I have the absolute autonomy at the foundation to create programs and initiatives that complement our work. And when I came blaring around the corner saying hey, can I have a bunch of square footage on E3's floor to do this thing? He didn't ask me too many questions and said, okay, go do it. So now for 2 years at E3, we have had a wonderful presence with our initiative called We Are. And We Are is something where we seek to educate, inspire, and encourage the next generation of game makers. But part of the way that we do it is not only by profiling and highlighting women that are in the industry and the legacy that they're building in the industry, but we also use it as a platform to connect scholars to mentors, to educate others about what they're doing in the industry, and have the opportunity to connect women. One of the things that we originally sought to do this as an extension of our scholarship program, almost like a PSA about how amazing our scholarship program is. And what it's ultimately turned into is a network of women who are able to connect across company lines and sometimes even across tech silos. Facebook has been a wonderful partner to us, as well as their women in their leadership team participating in our activities and vice versa. So it's just been a really wonderful opportunity to showcase for people that the 21% of women in the industry are strong, proud, and loud, and there will be more. So it's been great.
It's true.
That's great. Mike, I mean, first of all, I love hearing about that. I mean, we talked over lunch about We Are and kind of how the women reacted to each other, like seeing each other and really being able to connect for the first time. And, it's heartwarming, really, in a lot of ways.
Some of them are on, very big teams, or some of them are on very small teams, but they are oftentimes a minority among a lot of their coworkers. So having someone to really not anything about sharing their battle scars or anything like that. It's really just an open place to talk about their creativity, their ideas and to learn about the roles of other women in the industry and to find other opportunities. So it's really just kind of a camaraderie aspect and almost a business sharing platform.
If I could just add, if there's one place where there's a visual example of the success of this and the truth of the work that Anastasia's engaged in, it's the introduction to Bethesda Softworks E3 briefing each of the last 3 years. They're on YouTube. I encourage you to check them out. The very beginning is always focused on who they are as a company. And it's a fantastic representation of their personality and their values. And that's probably the best statement that supports what Anastasia's engaged on.
That's great. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And it was so amazing to hear about all the work that the ESA is doing. I know for me, just moderating this panel has been a real amazing education. So thank you.
Thank you.
And then if people want to learn more about what you're doing, where can they go to get more information?
Well, it's very handy. They flashed a very awesome slide up for
look
us.
at this. Very nice.
But I encourage any of you, regardless of gender, role in the industry, to connect with wearevideogames.org. It's a cool site, and we're going to continue to grow it. But from my part, ESA is definitely, call you my parent company. But we really are community partners out there, and we are always looking for mentorship opportunities for people to participate with us. We're also looking for people to judge our scholarship program, looking for internship opportunities for not just our scholarship recipients, but other folks in our sphere. And we would always love to connect folks with volunteer opportunities with our grantees. So if you're interested or just want to learn more, please reach out to me. We'd love to chat about it.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Livy.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Appreciate it.